All right, so I just had Danielle Ryan Broida on the show of working with Four Sigmatic, and she's a key player in the worldwide mushroom movement, which I didn't even know is a thing. And for that, we really just talk about just growing your immunity and just how you can have a stress response that can be conditioned using the right type of mushrooms really in your daily activities, and how you can replace things that you use throughout the day and not really know the difference by just incorporating mushrooms into your day. It's super interesting. Danielle, as I said, it's a key player in the mushroom movement, a registered herbalist of the American Herbalists Guild, certified holistic nutritionist, instructor of mycology, and national educator of Four Sigmatic. She's teaching over there. If you go to Four Sigmatic, you can actually see they have a mushroom academy, and you're going to want to learn a lot more today. So go over there. You can check her out at danielryanwellness.com. Super impressive. You're going to love this show. We had a little technical and some audio issue in the beginning. I think we got that all curbed up, but stay through it. There's a ton of value you can get out of this. If you really want to push and get your immunity stronger, you got to listen here. These are some just key factors you can do to incorporate that into your daily routine. All right, let's do this. All right, so we are here. Danielle, how are you today?
Doing well, thank you.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to be here with you. And I just have to say, so, you know, I read your bio and I jump in here, and one of the first lines is so engaging that we just have to start there, right? So Danielle is a key player in the worldwide mushroom movement. How do you get to that step here where this is of interest? You started to go down that path of the mushroom movement.
Yeah, great question. So if you've ever been out foraging for mushrooms, we call it a hunt, right? Because it's much more of an engaging process where you have to be really tuned in and your senses are on. And there's this idea that you don't find the mushrooms find you. So the more that you can let go of this desire to find them, the easier you'll actually start to see them and they'll show up. And I've experienced this almost every time I'm out on a forage. And it feels really similar to the way that I ended up in my career focusing on fungi. Is I had no idea that this path was where I was heading, and the mushrooms kind of found me.
It's kind of like meditation, right? Where you get so focused on not being distracted, but when you stop focusing on not being distracted and just let the distractions, just notice them and let them be there, it becomes natural, right? Because you're not fighting the curve. So when you first said, okay, the mushrooms have found me, what was your first thought? Where you're like, is this even a thing, or where did that lead?
Yeah, the more that I started learning about what you don't know, and that's such a profound, it just couldn't be more true than with the fungal kingdom. They are both the oldest and youngest species on the planet, the largest and smallest. There's so much wisdom and history and depth, and we're just at the beginning, at least in the Western world, of really learning and understanding how for the environment, to clean up waste, to be used as alternative materials, whether it's for leather or packaging. I mean, the potential of this kingdom is truly mind-blowing. And for me, the path kind of has taken many different angles, but at least this point in time, I focus on what are called functional mushrooms. So mushrooms that have known studied benefits for our health. And my philosophy with that is we all have so much incredible work to do in the world, but if our bodies aren't fueled, if we don't have the energy and strength, and if our stress isn't supported, we can't show up, in full vitality and go and do our work. So it's really kind of like zone zero, focusing on ourselves, using these incredibly powerful allies, truly, of herbal medicine that are our mushrooms, to be able to really kind of fuel us and become the best versions of ourselves to do whatever it might be that we're meant to do in this world.
All right, so and then how does that carry over into Four Sigmatic's message that they're bringing to the masses?
Yeah, so Four Sigmatic, our brand name, actually means that we're using the most researched, most nutrient-dense foods on the planet. We call these 4 Sigma foods, and there's about 100 foods that fall into that category, and we can get really heady and explain this and break it down a little further, but essentially...
Well, how do you identify those? Like, what is something that you say, these are the 100 foods? What would be some, like, the characteristics to cross the threshold?
Yeah, so there isn't really a international kind of definition of superfoods. And so what we've done is identified what foods have the most research behind them. So it's this combination of clinical trials and research with ancient knowledge. So our whole idea is bridging modern science and Mother Nature. So in the West, we're often just focused on where's the science, and then that proves the viability of a food. But as an herbalist, that science has equal weight to tradition and story, and the use case of using certain plants or mushrooms, for hundreds, if not thousands of years, which was the traditional way that knowledge was passed on. And so we unify really ancient traditions with those ingredients that have the research behind them. And then we coined this name Four Sigma foods. And about 10 of these Four Sigma foods, there's about 100 of them, are functional mushrooms. And so our goal is incorporating these functional foods into daily routines to make them really easy to become a consistent habit in your life.
So some of the daily routines, like what would be encompassed as part of your daily routine where you're saying, okay, I'm going to put 10 of these or a portion of these or some of these into my routine?
Yeah, so we look at what do people already do every day. Whether or not we realize it, most of us have routines. Typically, it's something we do when we wake up in the morning. Coffee is one of the most common routines in America. And most of us have something we do to unwind at the end of the day, whether that's a glass of wine, a cup of tea, something sweet, basically a habit to break up the day and get us prepared for that evening night of chill and, a deep night of rest. Some of us have routines like midday, whether that be a protein shake, making a smoothie, and then, so those are kind of like our three big routines that we've tapped into this morning, midday, and evening. And we're actually starting to branch out into other categories like skincare, which for many women, skincare is something that we do all the time. And so we've actually created the first fully edible skincare line. So you can use it topically and internally. And of course,
so how would you do that? It would be like an ointment you would put on, but it could be used in another allocation, like a salad dressing.
Yeah. So we have, I know it's foreign to most of us, but it's so important. Like what we put on our skin goes directly into our bloodstream. We forget that skin is our largest organ. And so I feel it's almost more important to be aware of what we put on our skin than what we put in our body, which has all of these processes of detoxification until it does get into our bloodstream. So we've started with 3 products. We have a mushroom face mask that has this cacao kind of chocolatey flavor. So you can they're in little packets and you can mix it with a few drops of water and use it as a mask, or you can mix it with warm water and have it like a Mexican hot chocolate. We also have a body butter, which I use a little scoop of and add as like a vegan obviously, but fatty creamer for coffee, kind of create like your own bulletproof coffee.
Yeah.
And then a serum, which is this oil-based like night or day serum that you can literally just pop under your tongue as a kind of stress supporting adaptogenic supplement.
So first time customers, right? What is typically, I know besides, of course, I know you guys have some great ads running out there. What is typically driving a customer? Like when they're looking for X, they find Four Sigmatic and they find the value of mushrooms. Like what are some of the topics that generally draw people into this to say, okay, I'm going to try this?
Yeah, people want to feel better and pretty much in a couple areas, and we'll speak to the current time, which is 2020. And almost everyone is coming to me saying, what can I do for long-term immune support and to support my stress response? And if our functional mushrooms could all be lumped into an umbrella category, those are the 2 biggest areas that they target. So they're called immune modulators. They're like cruise control for our immune system, creating this balance and equilibrium in our immune system. So we can kind of dive through different layers, but essentially if you have overactive immune response, I used to work with clients with autoimmune conditions where there's too much immune activity. You can take a functional mushroom like reishi, for example, and it will tamper down that immune response. And for those of us that don't have autoimmune conditions, if there's underactive immunity, like change of season, a virus going around, that same reishi mushroom will activate, B cells, T cells, natural killer cells, turn on your immune system. So it's this really incredible way to not just stimulate or depress immunity, but to be able to have this kind of tonic that supports immune balance long term.
Interesting. So it is a good point, right? You would take it where, I don't know, if you're not out in the sun a lot, right? So you're not getting the right vitamins here. You can use it as something to stimulate your immune system, which a lot of people I'm sure are looking for right now, right? Especially as we go into the colder months and the uncertainty. The most popular product, is it the coffee? Is that the most popular product, or what else is rivaling factor there?
Yeah, definitely our most popular product is mushroom coffee, because we have to meet ourselves where we're at. It's so important. You could learn about the coolest ingredient and, it's so good for you. This has been used for thousands of years. And if it doesn't taste good, if it doesn't make sense in your life, you're likely not going to use it. And so we really want to make sure that we're looking at what makes sense for you. Like what are you already doing? And let's find a way to elevate that, right? Make a better for you option. So it's so easy, almost seamless. You don't even have to think about what you're doing, but you're getting, it's like little hacks with these really big benefits. Like all you do is swap your coffee. You won't even notice that it tastes different. It's like delicious, real, organic, fair trade ground coffee with, this full supplement dose of some of the most powerhouse ingredients on the planet added in. So if you already drink coffee, mushroom coffee is the easiest way to start elevating your routine, to start feeling better every day.
With the direction of the company, that's I guess the doorway, right? That's the entryway to come into the brand. What is the focus for people to evolve into? Because I guess for a long time, and potentially still today, there is that taboo thought to, okay, we're ingesting mushrooms, or we're functional mushrooms, right? Or just the way the language is using. If you had your pick today, what is that product that you really want the masses to come upon because it would provide the most value?
So you might not love this answer, but the way that I believe in working with individuals is that every body is unique. So, and this is how traditional medicine has worked in pretty much every culture, whether we look at Ayurveda, which is where we get a lot of our herbs, traditional medicine of India, or traditional Chinese medicine, where there's a deep history with many of our mushrooms. In Western herbalism, which is, I'm a Western vitalist herbalist, there's different body types. So each of us, based on what we're born into, for example, some of us are naturally more hot and fiery. Some of us are more cold and moist or damp, and that can fluctuate through different seasons and locations as well. If you live at high altitude, right? For me, living in Colorado at almost 7,000 feet, it's a lot drier there. So my body's going to be prone to being drier versus, living in New Jersey at sea level, you have a lot more humidity in the air. And so the same, and when it comes to using whole food ingredients, which are plants or mushrooms, they're not isolates, which is kind of the big difference between East and West medicine. Is almost all of our Western medicine originally came from a plant or fungi, but we've isolated a specific constituent to have the same repeatable effect in nearly any body that takes it. And so when we're working with, it's almost like matchmaking, like a whole plant being mushroom with another whole human. And there is going to be different needs for every person. And so rather than saying like, this is my one prescription for all, which similarly, we all want to grab onto that. Like, what's the best diet? What's the best herb? What's the best mushroom? It's like, well, it depends on who you are and what you're needing. And the important thing is to to really, my goal as an educator is how can we better understand our own bodies? We get so little education about our own physiology. And so how can we understand not only what's happening in our body, but when we get signals or messages, understand what it's telling us, so we know ways and we have options of ways to treat or support what we're experiencing.
What are some of the difficulties that the mushroom movement is facing right now, going forward into the next time?
Yeah, so it's kind of like the wild, wild west when it comes to mushrooms in the marketplace right now. And they're very new, at least for us in the Western world, to be using functional mushrooms. And there's very basic things to understand to know if you're getting a quality supplement. And I find there's so much miseducation, and whether that is using, I think the biggest, we'll kind of go through the biggest things that we're facing. But first, and this is with so much of natural medicine, is this idea of pixie dusting. So people don't know, is 5 milligrams what I need, or is 5,000 milligrams what I need? And so not understanding and then using something and making the conclusion that it didn't work. And
what would be a quick thing, like if I didn't know that answer right there, like how would I figure it out without just doing what, like you just said, just trying it and saying, oh, it did or didn't work?
Mm-hmm. The proper range that I would suggest is someone that's totally new to work with functional mushrooms is 500 to 1,500 milligrams. And there's lots of resources at Four Sigmatic. I just put out a Mushroom Academy. So it's a totally free online course that you can go and watch these little videos and learn about what to look for. So that's a great start. And then there's also books that I recommend and podcasts, and the information is there. It just takes that desire to kind of go one step further than like, cool, I heard reishi's good for me, let me try it. Really invest another 5, 10, 15 minutes to look at, is this a quality supplement, before, just blindly reaching for it and then making the assessment that, okay, this is good or it's bad.
I love it. I want the videos to have some kind of like Super Mario Bros. Theme to them, right? With the mushrooms there. I think that, like, I'm sure you guys tried to get them as a mascot, but I've heard they're taken. But on that front, that would be fantastic. I digress. So back to it here. Are you working actively to work to get more guidelines in place? I can understand, like it was a lot like the supplement industry when it first really pushed out there. There was, they were offering stuff that was very active, not great for people because there was no real strict guidelines. And then they started pulling a bunch of stuff back, and there's still problems there. There's still thresholds, and that's why we see there's always new stuff coming on the market, right? And you see that across the board. What direction are you pushing to really help get control of the market? I
think the education piece is huge, and understanding that functional mushrooms aren't just another food trend, like, oh, this is the new goji berry. Like, this is an entire biological kingdom that we're speaking of. So when we we really have to zoom out and realize that this isn't like just one of, hundreds of thousands of different plants out there that have, a lot of vitamin C, or which are great, absolutely. But when we're talking about fungi, these are some of the oldest, safest natural medicines on the planet. And really understanding that this is a separate category than what so many of us are used to even looking at or becoming familiar with. It's like, okay, let's think of all of our fruits and vegetables and trees and shrubs and herbs like that. Those are all in this plant kingdom. We have to zoom out and understand there are 6 times as many fungi species as every plant on Earth. So this is like an entire vast, we got to like take off our hat that we're used to viewing our food through and understand that we're looking at bringing another kingdom into our lives, whether it's through food or medicine. And from that place, we can start to, whether it's make the rules or guidelines and put things in place. But from my perspective and with Four Sigmatic, we really believe that nature knows best. So we provide the functional mushrooms in their most authentic traditional way, which means they're grown on logs, or they're wild harvested out in nature. There's a lot of stuff we're seeing today about, growing these species in labs and on certain grains and cheap substrates, and then just grinding up that grain and calling it a mushroom. And so, the piece of understanding, okay, how have these ingredients been used for thousands of years? What part of the species has the research behind it, which is almost always this fruiting body or the mushroom itself. And from that place, right, going back to the unifying Mother Nature and modern science, how can we allow this really medicine to have a place in our lives today? Because we really need what they have to offer us. They're so beyond powerful in their capacity to work with our body, specifically with our immune system and our stress response.
So with 6 times as many active species, and you have this kingdom, which is amazing, because I didn't know that. And is there specific places that are best for foraging for and does it adapt or evolve, or talk to us through that process?
Yeah, so it depends what species you're looking for, but there is, we'll just kind of draw the distinction that there's a difference between a lot of our culinary mushrooms, or what most people think of as like that squishy classic mushroom, versus this category of functional fungi that we've been talking about today. And there's a few crossovers, but typically, culinary varieties, even psychedelic varieties, poisonous varieties, those are mostly growing from the earth, from dirt, from soil. And functional mushrooms are typically growing from trees, whether they're still standing or fallen. Just a really basic understanding. And then from there, before you go out and forage, whether it's for a mushroom or a plant, you really want to know what are potential toxic lookalikes, right? So if we're going out to forage, an herb, knowing what other species in that family you want to look out for. But instead of like, cool, I'm just going to go and find any mushroom. Great. If you just want to experience it, I encourage all of us to go out and be in the woods as much as possible, or just breathe fresh air, have your feet on the earth. Like, that is so healing in and of itself. But yeah, knowing, if you're looking for a specific functional mushroom, knowing your region, there's amazing mycological societies in almost every state. You can go out on a forage with a mycologist as a place to start before you go out on your own. And knowing kind of what grows in different areas. So turkey tail mushroom is like one of the most abundant that you can find in most areas around the States. If you're in the Northeast, you can find a lot of chaga because they grow on birch trees. It kind of depends where you are and what you're looking for.
Amazing. And so there's so much information. I mean, this is truly amazing. And just the long-term immunity level of it, I mean, it's definitely something that's really resonates with people, right? Because there's so much focus now on all kinds of things, but there's not a lot of focus on immunity. And that's what most of us need right now. And if we can change that narrative and get more people to understand that, regardless of anything, that's something that we need to instill more of in our life, and have something that's natural, that's been around for thousands of years, and you can use it as a resource throughout your day. It honestly becomes a no-brainer. You just have to, it's just taking that step and put it forward. So Danielle, I love the message, very interesting, and super appreciate you coming on today. So for everyone listening, tell us how we can connect better with you, connect better with Four Sigmatic.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, you can go to my website, Danielle Ryan Wellness, and then on social channels, it's Danielle Ryan Broida. And then, of course, I'm all over Four Sigmatic. So on all social at Four Sigmatic and foursigmatic.com. And through there, you can find our Mushroom Academy if you want to learn a little more.
Yeah, I love it. That's so cool. Well, thank you so much for coming to the show. We super appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you. Bye now.
Bye.
Join us for your second cup of coffee every Monday through Friday at noon.
Live every day, bringing us our best content we've done so far. Super excited, super engaging, bunch of great guests. We're here to answer your questions, and we so appreciate you listening. Make sure to check this out.
Can't wait to see you.